but as soon as she caught sight of him, her eyes widened. She saw the face of him that she never did, and she was scared to see him like this. Her heart thundered in her chest as she stayed frozen at her place, staring at him. She didn't expect this side of him at all. She immediately ran to him and sat beside him on the floor, putting the bowl of soup at the side, his hands covered in blood and a little stains of it on the boxing bag, his eyes red from the pain. "What the hell you are doing?" she said in a loud voice as she tried to take his hand, her hand trembling while doing so, and she panicked a lot. Jungkook's expression softened slightly at her words, his anger giving way to a flicker of vulnerability. "You don't understand, Vine," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've spent my entire life building walls around my heart, protecting myself from pain and disappointment. I don't know how to let someone in," he said, his voice having cracks. Vine's heart ached at the pain in Jungkook's eyes, her own tears threatening to spill over. "You don't have to do this alone, Jungkook," she said, her voice trembled with compassion. "I'm here for you, always," she said, trying to look in his eyes. Jungkook shook his head. "No, Vine, you can't understand. No one is here for me. No one was," he said, looking ahead. "I cannot love at this point. I cannot avoid this feeling too. I'm drowning between both of them. But there is no one to help me. I will have to do it alone." He looked down at the realization that he has yet another challenge to face, with no one able to help him. Even if someone keeps saying that they will be there, they always leave at the end. So he cannot hope again. He doesn't want to. She immediately pulled his head in her embrace and hugged him tightly while patting his head. He could hear her heartbeat fastened up. He put his blood-covered hand on her heart and tried to feel her heartbeat. "I'm so sorry," he said quietly. "You're suffering because of me." Vine held Jungkook close, feeling his pain radiating through his body. She knew that he had built these walls for a reason, but she also knew that deep down he craved love and understanding just like everyone else. As she embraced him, she whispered softly, "You don't have to do this alone, Jungkook. I may not understand everything, but I'm here for you, and I'm not going anywhere." Jungkook's walls began to crack as her words seeped into his heart. He realized that he didn't have to push her away, that he didn't have to carry the weight of his past alone. Slowly, he lifted his head from her embrace and looked into her eyes, seeing nothing but love and sincerity reflected back at him. For the first time in a long time, Jungkook let himself be vulnerable. With a trembling voice, he whispered, "Will you help me break down these walls, Vine?" He kept staring in her eyes, and they stayed there, lost in each other for some seconds. Vine held him close, her heart breaking for the man she loved, who carried so much pain within him. She nodded slowly, while keeping the eye contact with him. She whispered softly, "Jungkook, let me in. Let me help you carry this burden." Her words hung heavy in the air as he closed his eyes, a single tear slipping down his cheek. Just one. Give me one chance. Be vulnerable in front of me. Be weak in front of me. All you wanted to be, but never could. Her voice shaking. I will never break your trust and leave you hanging after making you feel these emotions. She paused for some seconds. Trust me once. Jungkook hesitated, his walls crumbling as he felt the warmth of Vian's love surrounding him. He had never allowed himself to be vulnerable, to rely on someone else, but in that moment, with Vian's unwavering support, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. He slowly wrapped his arms around her, holding her close as if she was his lifeline in the raging sea of his emotions. I'm scared, Vian, he admitted quietly, his voice raw with emotion. Scared of letting you in and facing all that I've kept locked away for so long. He paused. But I want to try. I want to let you in, even if it means facing the darkest parts of myself. His voice trembled with the weight of his compassion. I'm done living like that. He tightened his grip against her back. I want to hold you, touch you, love you. Vine held him tighter, her heart swelling with love and compassion. I'm scared too, she admitted, her own vulnerability laid bare. Scared of not being enough for you. Scared of not being able to mend all the broken pieces inside you. But I want to try to. I want to be by your side through it all, Jungkook. Jungkook looked at her with his eyes filled with surprise. It was the first time he found someone like her, and he genuinely didn't want to let her go. After staring at her eyes for too long, he looked at her lips. Without another word, Jungkook closed the gap between them, his lips meeting hers in a tender and passionate kiss. In that moment, it felt as if the weight of the world had been lifted off his shoulders. Vine responded eagerly, pouring all her love and reassurance into the embrace. Jungkook felt his heart swell with emotions he had long kept buried, letting himself be carried away by the intensity of their connection. When they finally broke apart, their foreheads pressed together, Jungkook whispered softly, Thank you for not giving up on me. His eyes bore into hers with a new-found sense of determination and hope. Vine smiled through her tears, her hand reaching up to cup his cheek lovingly. I could never give up on you, Jungkook. Not when I see the strength and resilience in you. Not when I see the depths of your heart. We're in this together now. As they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by the faint scent of blood and sweat, mingled with the comforting aroma of Vine's handmade soup, Jungkook finally allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, happiness was within reach after all. Next morning, Vine and Jungkook wake up at the same spot they were sitting in last night, in the basement, with him in her chest and her in his arms. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the basement window, casting a warm glow on Jungkook and Vine as they slept entwined in each other's arms. Vine stirred awake first, feeling his steady heartbeat against her cheek, and his breath softly ruffling her hair. She couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of peace and contentment wash over her. As she slowly opened her eyes, she was met with the sight of Jungkook's serene expression as he slept soundly. His face, usually guarded and stoic, looked almost angelic in the morning light. Vine couldn't resist the urge to reach out and gently brush a strand of hair away from his face, her heart swelling with love for this man who had captured it so completely. Jungkook stirred awake at her touch, his eyes fluttering open to meet hers. For a moment, they simply gazed at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. No words were needed. He blinked a few times, still half asleep, before a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice husky with sleep. She leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead, lingering for a moment to savor the tenderness between them. Jungkook's hand found hers. Their fingers intertwining in a silent promise of their newfound connection. He looked at her, and she knew he wanted to say something, but his words were stuck somewhere between his throat and heart. She didn't need him to. She smiled while looking at him and said, "Let's go for breakfast." He smiled and offered his hand, which she accepted gladly, assuring him that even though she knows the dangers that lay ahead, she will always accept his bare hand. From there, hand in hand, they went upstairs for breakfast. The days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Jungkook and Vine's bond only grew stronger as they navigated through the highs and lows of life together. Jungkook found solace in Vine's unwavering support, and Vine found a sense of purpose in helping Jungkook heal his past wounds.